Sanitary District to order. Roll call, please.
Okay, Gaffney,
Here.
Borstein,
Here.
Meggs, Sella, here, Kelly.
At this time, we'd like to adjourn to closed session. Reconvene to open session. Please join me in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're reconvening from a closed session and we have nothing to report. Item 6 is approval of agenda. Anyone wish to,
Move that we approve it.
Second?
any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Item 7 is open time for public to raise items not on the agenda or for future agendas. Members of the public will address the board on issues that are within our district's jurisdiction.
Actually, since I can't talk, maybe can I talk in this
Yes.
moment? Before I take my free lunch and go. So I just want to report that there's an enormous rally in the bond market right now. There are tons of bonds. There are $20 billion in bonds being sold this week, which is about 5 times average volume.
Yeah.
But there are so many buyers. These are all bonds that would have been sold in January, February, March. The buyers who were looking forward to buying those bonds are just buying now. So the interest rates are actually declining.
Well,
The long bond is 30 basis points lower today than it was last Wednesday.
Wow.
30 basis points.
30 basis points.
Which is good for us, yes?
This is all good.
I thought I know
Interest, a basis point is 1/100%, so 0.3%. That's good.
I thought that's what it was, but I didn't want to be
Yeah, so
sitting up here happy about it.
Now, what about our workshop?
That's scheduled for the 12th, and those are the kinds of things we'll talk about, like market conditions, and as we can see from even the last week, it's pretty.
Remember, we were going to talk about some things like reducing the length of the call to see if that
Yep.
helps.
Yep.
When will we know our rating?
Friday, this Friday.
This Friday?
Yeah.
Okay, and then you can tell us about insurance and all this stuff like that.
Yeah.
Surety. And have you gotten bids on things like the surety or?
Got the first bid today, the second one is coming on Friday.
Okay, that's good.
Andrea's trying not to stop you guys from talking about it.
Remember, the public makes the comments.
Oh.
You're not supposed to discuss
The
it.
board shall have, you read it, the board shall have
Yeah,
no
yeah.
discussion during this
I can
time.
discuss.
You have to come sit out here.
Okay.
Things are progressing well.
Great.
But you can have an extra sandwich.
For that report.
But how, can I contact Mr. Gibbs on things I'd like to have Sperry Capital discuss at the workshop?
Yeah, sure.
That's what I'm
Yeah.
interested
Sure, absolutely.
in. Thank you, Mr. Public.
Thanks for the free food.
Any other? So that's good news.
Mhm.
Okay, item 8 is the consent calendar. Does anyone of the board wish to pull any of the items off the consent calendar?
No, I'd like to make a comment, though. Financials will be, they're not in here, right? And they'll be here next month.
Right.
Did you tell me?
Yeah, because of the quick turnaround with the timing on the board meeting, we're just going to bring, at the regular January board meeting, you'll get a catch-up set of it on monthly financials, yeah. You had your regular monthly financials in the November package, the November 15, and just again, because of the short turnaround on the calendar, we don't have numbers available yet.
Early meeting.
On item B, how is that going?
I'm sorry.
Emergency repair.
Oh, yeah, I was just gonna, so, yeah,
Let's pull it.
Okay,
okay, very good. We can
let's
talk.
pull item 8B.
So I move we approve the consent calendar, pulling item D.
Second, it's just one item.
We have a few questions in there.
Okay.
Approve them all at the same time.
Since there are two.
Okay, so what's a little status
Okay,
report?
so good news on that, and we almost didn't need to continue it, but there really is like maybe 5 field days worth of work. Less than 5 field days worth of work left. Catherine and I were just out there for a quick site tour earlier this week. She was nice enough to show me around out there. The work is really impressive. It's great. M&G's done an awesome job under very challenging site conditions. The pipe is done, the foundations are poured, the sewer flow is back to normal. They have some minor grading and surface restoration like jute matting and stuff for erosion control to do. But if we were having this conversation a week from now, you'd be probably being asked to consider end the emergency. So it's just an unfortunate hook in the calendar. We'll bring you back a regular item in January to terminate the emergency. But for all intents and purposes, by the end of, say, next week, the work is done. We'll get out of the neighbor's hair. Permitting agencies are happy. I can't stress, I mean, when you look at what had to get done out there, people did an awesome job. The foundations on this thing are supported by 80-foot deep helical piers. It's an impressive piece of pipe to put in the ground in such short notice. It wasn't cheap, and we don't like to do it that way. But the fact that it got done before the rainy season, and we had some tough neighbor negotiations too. So anyway, it's gone really well, and we're a few days from closing it out, and M&G will be on their way.
We agree with consent calendar.
I second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Hey,
Thanks, Jim.
thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Jim.
Item 9, consideration of approving amendment to the general manager's contract. And there isn't a staff report. The board discussed this in closed session. Board members, do you have any comments?
So we can have it on the record as to how we do this. Tom and I were the committee that did this again. And as of, I believe it was last year, it is now a procedure that is implemented into our procedures here. And we did that again. And so we went through our business plan and our strategic plan, and looked at what needed to be done during the past year, and put all that stuff into the accomplishments, which were many, down. We also did a a salary survey from the Bay Area, and we looked at it, and we felt that Greg's salary for the past number of years has been substantially below even the median of what the rest of the area salaries were. So we decided on the COLA adjustment and also a one-time adjustment to bring the salary up to what we thought would be right about dead center of what everybody else is doing in this area. That's what we offered him. There we are.
And I'd like to point out that we had a board review package, and each board member submitted comments on the performance of our general manager. And the average rating, the overall rating was 5 is high, and 4 is performed above expectations. 5 is excellent, outstanding performance, and they range from 1 to 5. And the overall rating was 4.63, so it's pretty close to the average was close to excellent, outstanding performance. And so as a board, we rate our manager quite well. Any other comments?
I would just say, we, with the reorganization, everything that the district did this year, and the continued IAMP, in compliance with the regulators' requirements, we couldn't be happier. Staff is happy, turnover is low. things that we should have gotten straightened out a long time ago are getting straightened out. So, we're grateful. And we want, if possible, to have a 2-year contract with the ability to review the salary?
Yes.
Each year, annually. We review the
Yes,
salary.
review salary each year, but
We review the performance each year.
we're gonna try to lock him in for longer.
So just to clarify, you want the term to run through December of 2019?
That is what I would recommend, but, subject to, the current term ends December
I believe it ends
31st of this
yeah,
year?
at the end of this year. Okay.
whatever the next 2 years I would be.
Okay.
Well, yeah, through, I would say through January, December 31st, 2019. That'd be 2 years.
And whatever, you can make that part of your motion, so we have specificity for the amendment.
So I move.
Can I say something?
Sure.
So when I first started here, there was a lot of chaos and just a lot of mistrust on many levels in many areas of the district. And I have to say, Greg, you've kept a steady course, so I've really grown to appreciate you and feel grateful that you kept the helm free and clear,
I appreciate
at
the
least
feedback.
for right now.
You know,
So I'm
have-
really looking forward to when the State Regional Quality Board is totally gone to the sunset.
Yes. that-
So anyway, great, yeah.
A day to look forward
Yeah,
to.
and I think, looking at this summary, just within, was this last year, is this for 1 year? So yeah, so you, good on you.
Very
Yeah,
impressive.
good on you.
And actually, it's, what Pam says is that we've had a huge amount of changes and improvements, all done without acrimony. And major accomplishments in reorganization and a huge capital program that seems to be going smoothly. And we were able to reduce staff by 3 positions this year because of efficiencies. And it's actually quite impressive.
I agree. I think the department's been extremely well run because of you, Greg. I really think you've done a great job. And we're not in the newspaper except for good news. So I think our karma has moved north.
Former karma. Yes.
And other sanitary districts are in the news.
That's what I meant. No, north.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and they're all, and it occurred to me because before our meeting, Patrick was saying that he was cutting down on clients and telling people he didn't want to work with them. And he does want to continue to work with us. And that is one of those things that ends up being cost savings for us, so that we don't have to, retrain our labor negotiator, simply because Greg and the staff here are pleasant to work with.
Yeah.
And so that's a real bonus.
And as a consultant, it's not only pleasant, you really don't want to work with incompetent staff because you look bad.
That's right.
Because they can't implement what they're doing.
I also think that what you've been able to turn around in the past number of years is a trust. You've rebuilt a trust from your staff that I was not here before, but I sense that there's a lot of trust between the worker bees and management.
Yeah, there's continued progress on that.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
So I move that we approve the 2-year extension to the contract with
Can you say with specificity what the recommendation on
with
salary is?
the
and put it in the
recommended
parent-
salary raised to a total of $228,986.00.
Dollars per year.
Which is, she wants you to read the parenthetical also, Michael.
That's a 2.7% COLA and a 9.3% merit and market comparison increase.
And so most of that increase was due to
Market comparison.
the market comparison.
Yes.
We found that Greg was underpaid compared to the standards in our area. I second the motion.
Can I
And then
just
we
ask one more point of clarity?
Sure.
That when the new salary takes effect?
Thank you.
September, wasn't
I
it?
believe it was September.
It's September.
Yes.
Gone.
Yes.
Yep.
But the new term runs from January 1.
The new term runs until through the end of December of 2019.
Yes.
Yes. And is there anything else we need to change on the contract or address on the contract?
No, it's
I
fine.
don't think so.
You get to say all those in favor.
Okay, I'm right back. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? And the motion
Who
carries.
seconded that motion?
Pardon me?
Who was the second?
I did, I seconded it.
Who's been on the, who's been on the,
Tom?
yes,
Second.
keep them.
Oh, you were in the meeting.
No, go ahead.
Okay,
And again, my
so,
apologies for being late, I
Okay.
really apologize.
item 10, consideration of authorizing staff to issue notice inviting bid for construction of the FY 2016-17 gravity sewer improvement project. And this is,
Bathroom.
item 10. That's the staff.
So this project has been designed, it's ready to go out for bid. Actually, I see the difference here. This is the second part of the FY 2016-17. It includes everything related to the capacity improvements. We had some increases in flow capacity for wet weather flows that we needed in Lower Butterfield and Meadowcroft, and then also down at Nokomis. So this project does that. We currently have the first rehabilitation project under construction. That's 8.4 miles. This is approximately 1.4 miles of gravity sewer. It's a mix of methods. So we have the methods primarily open cut, some large impacts in terms of Butterfield. So there's been significant coordination with the town of San Anselmo, and that is ongoing. There's some coordination with MMWD also, because they also have projects there. So the project has been designed, is in final review. The CEQA environmental review process is still ongoing. So the board will hear a consideration of action on that later. And is there anything else?
Any comments from the board?
I have a question. We're on 10.
Yes.
Yes. Is this gonna aren't they gonna do all the stuff on Sir Francis
What
Drake?
page, Pam?
Well, I'm just asking a broad question.
Oh, okay.
Is this gonna conflict with the stuff that's going on Sir Francis Drake?
It's not. We've been
It's not.
coordinating.
How do you-
San Anselmo coordinates all the projects very
Because that's
carefully.
gonna get really that nasty. Okay.
Yeah, we have a piece on the south or eastbound side of Sir Francis Drake in the gutter. So relatively short in terms of the project overall.
Any other board member? Okay, I have a comment. This is a really expensive pipe. It's 7.4 million.
Yeah, we
No, 7, is it 7 million? I have 7.5 million for 1.4 miles. That's $5 million a mile. Whoa, the rule of thumb is $1.5 million a mile?
Okay.
Why is this so expensive?
It is very deep and difficult construction methods, very difficult traffic. You need to deal with traffic bypasses. I think at Meadowcroft and Butterfield, you're looking at a 27-foot deep excavation
27
there.
feet deep.
So
Because that is expensive per mile.
it's very, yeah, it's large diameter, difficult construction. So, and really a lot of controls that need to be in place given Butterfield Road and the impacts. And Sir Francis Drake, but
Boy, if we have to replace 200 miles at $5 million a mile.
Yeah,
That's
how
$1.
much is the open cut when you compare it to, I mean, isn't open cut like, I guess like.
Well, for our like run of the mill,
On an
so to
average.
speak, like 6 to 8 inch, normal gravity sewer pipe, our rules of thumb are about, CIPP is about half of open cut,
third.
third
Okay.
pipe bursting. So there is, now this, and Catherine can explain more,
Yeah, most
this is not your average job because of the depth and the topography that's being dealt with. we're using several specialty trenchless construction methods, not like normal CIPP stuff, more like what's the guided
Pilot tube guided auger boring.
so this is pretty like your kind of advanced, directed tunneling. So, because we're trying to, and this is being done in some very difficult access areas because of the nature of Sleepy Hollow, and they're kind of largely one way in, one way out with Butterfield Road. And then the side roads are very, have a lot of restrictions and limitations. So it is an expensive project. It is not your average 5-6 mile project. This is kind of a specialty one. And again, Catherine can talk more to this. We clearly recognize it's a very high profile project in an area with a lot of, very active, constituents. It's basically the Sleepy Hollow corridor that gets impacted by this construction. And there are several schools, and so on. So we are very aware and we're working with San Anselmo and others to do and be ready for doing the planned public outreach. But main thing is this is not your average, mile and a half or so here. This is one of the ones we're going to be a lot of resources and paying a lot of attention to.
And you'll be doing it over multiple summers, is that correct?
Then we're still working on that. It may be over multiple summers. How long we are in Butterfield Road will put us outside of school season, so much concerned about that.
And we have the issue of the traffic mitigation on Butterfield Road,
Yes.
and they want us to pay a third of a widening of Butterfield.
Still communicating on that, in terms of the.
This is the project
Okay.
Doug, that you and I were discussing. And what it is, and Catherine and I gave a little, drove out with this, so that was very helpful, is it's not the actual construction zone itself.
Okay.
One of the desired and planned traffic bypass routes has about a 200 to 300 foot stretch of private road, no, not private, public road, that you have a nice wide road, and then for about 300 feet it's very narrow and it's next to a creek. And theoretically, widening that road and permanently improving it would make the two-way temporary traffic in that corridor flow a little bit better in general. So there's some very late hour conversations with San Anselmo about how best to provide traffic redirection there. And those are issues we're working out at the senior staff level, and then if we aren't successful, we'll be talking more to the board in terms of how that works out.
Isn't most of Butterfield Road in the county?
At the end it is. This project goes up to San Anselmo and it finishes in San Anselmo. It doesn't get to county.
Correct.
Almost, but not quite.
Just barely.
Barely, okay.
And
That's just because the pipes don't need it in the county section?
Correct.
the upper parts of that area are taken care of.
And we've done some improvements further up in the 80s.
Okay, any more comments from the board?
I think it's a great idea to do this outreach with having this open house. I think that's great, so people can get ready.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
the
good
feedback
idea.
from the town is you really can't communicate enough.
And it is a difficult, my daughter went to school at, that little school down there.
Right.
Yeah.
People went both ways.
Yeah, and then at the end of the street is the other school, right, on San Domingo.
Is there anything we can learn from MMWD's work that they've been doing up there for a really long time?
They haven't done this lower portion yet. We're actually, that's kind of the horse trading of summers. In terms of MMWD is also planning to do work in the same corridor. So we've coordinated our alignment with their alignment for some fire flow and aged infrastructure work that they're doing. So in terms of cost too, or the kind of cost per mile, this is in the realm of the Magnolia trunk line cost. So for the larger diameter, the difficult constructions, you have a significantly higher per mile.
Yeah.
27 feet down, that's hard. 27 feet down, that's 3 stories
So
down.
you have to, provide piles, some kind of sheet
Yeah,
sheathing, they're all the way down.
that's right.
Okay, any other motion from the board?
I would move to authorize staff to issue a notice of inviting bids for construction of the fiscal year 2016-17 gravity sewer improvement project.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Any further discussion? Yeah, all in favor?
You just run the meeting. I'm not, no, I don't want to do it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. I mean, you want to do it?
No.
Okay, so now we're on to item 11, agenda item 11. Consideration of authorizing staff to issue a notice inviting bids and file a notice of exemption for construction of a large diameter gravity sewer rehabilitation project 2-3. And this one goes through the town of Ross. This is going to come up that town. So, oh, God.
This is also the kind of the final package in terms of the large diameter rehabilitation that we identified when we did the condition assessment work. It also does have a component of capacity, wet weather improvements, Shady Lane, near Bolinas. So this project is total mileage more than a mile. No, so total mileage more than a mile. It includes adding some new infrastructure in Shady Lane, rehabilitating pipeline, upsizing and doing parallel pipeline through Lagunitas, Cross Common, and then down Prospect / to the Kent Ave, or Kentfield, just into Kentfield. So we will be lining and doing parallel sewer for the last of our non-reinforced concrete pipe in the larger diameter. So that pipe down through here is the old 1920s non-reinforced concrete pipe. This pipe will address the condition issues there and the I&I there by having the parallel line and getting the laterals off of that old pipe.
Pardon me, by parallel line, you mean you're putting it next to the old pipe?
We're going to put in we're going to put in a 15-inch pipe parallel to the existing 24-27 and then line that 24-27 so we eliminate all the joints and all of the lateral connections which have been there.
But I was looking at the map, there's already a parallel line that goes like down Shanley Lane, the old railroad right away.
There's
There's one that goes down Shady Lane, and then there's
Shady,
one
yes.
that goes real closer to the creek.
Yes, this is very similar to, we've already done that parallel infrastructure work north of Lagunitas. So basically we're doing now south of Lagunitas, so it's been done where we had collector sewers which take the laterals and take the lines coming down from Norwood and all of those pipes there. So it's repeating that, kind of separating the large diameter flow which is coming down out of San Anselmo from the local flows.
So it also says construction is planned for spring to winter 2018. So like 8 months, 8 months. And what are you going to do about going right in front of Ross School? Are you going to do that during the summer?
Yeah, there are constraints there for summer construction. And there's also a constraint for construction under Ross Creek at Locust and Shady Lane. So those will have separate constraints for when that work is completed.
Let's see, so we're going out for, we're just going out for a notice inviting bids. And then we're going to have a big public information program on this one, like Butterfield.
And staff has been talking about a coordinated approach to that, since we're going to have two big, high-impact projects going at the same time.
But you can't have them at one meeting because the Ross people will not go up there to Butterfield. The Butterfield people probably will not. Well, you should have the Ross meeting at Tom's home.
Yard and Garden Center.
The Art Garden Center, perfect.
Okay, any other comments from board members? This is going to be
Well, this one, is this Allen on the blue? Is that still Allen?
the,
Something. That's gonna be,
That's Shady Lane.
okay, that's shady. That's gonna be difficult traffic.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's very
It's
narrow.
my commute lane.
And then, look at
It
Lost
is.
Common, right in front of the school, the green,
Yeah.
open cut.
Mhm.
But during the summer,
Yeah, but that's not that long. It's, well,
But it just had an open cut. Did we do that?
MMWD.
Yeah.
And that's the post office, and Ross doesn't have home delivery, everybody has to go to the post office.
Yeah, everybody goes to the post
Yep.
office. Every day.
really?
You didn't know
I
that?
didn't know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
You don't want people coming up. I live in the next town over, that's why I can say,
Okay.
they don't want people coming up in the car.
So
It's
we're
true,
gonna
it's
pipe
very
burst
gated.
through the commons.
Right, burst through the commons,
The
yes.
commons will
Pipe
be.
goes through the common, the red, yeah, okay.
We had,
Oh,
reports.
and I see
in
that
terms
I'm sorry, that's
doesn't,
ripping up the grass?
no,
No, it's all trench list, it's underneath, so they should be seeing it.
it's smashed through the existing pipeline.
No.
There's one manhole, so there'll be a pit.
Oh, pipe.
There's one pit in the common and some.
And this is another expensive
Yeah.
cost per mile. This is a mile and a
Yeah.
quarter. And it's $500 so far. Okay, any other board discussion? I'm the one that's gonna worry about this one.
Well, it's good, as Catherine pointed out, put this in perspective, because this goes all the way back to 2014. When we started the asset management plan, we did a targeted project to condition assess 9 miles of large diameter pipe, gravity pipe. And we then went through a whole process to assess the risks to those and prioritize them. And then came up with the roughly 3.5 miles that actually needed attention out of that 9 miles.
Yeah.
And then we've taken that 3.5 miles plus or minus and given its geographic location, like downtown San Anselmo, and the nature of the construction work, we've broken that into 3 separate construction packages and then phased those. So you're seeing the end, this is the last contract, the other ones are already in progress, and this is the last contract with that whole package. So you're really looking at the condition assessment, prioritization, and now restoration of all of the large diameter gravity trunk sewers for the district. So to put that in perspective, when we're done with this project, you look at the health of the 18-inch and above gravity sewer lines for the Ross Valley, and you can generally say they're in good operating and structural condition.
And that was the last, I remember, we authorized the study of the condition. That was the last part of the capital improvement program that we got going. So it's going to be done.
And this, just the top of the system is actually affecting, our system, how it functions in downtown San Anselmo. So it's a very small capacity improvement, in terms of redirecting where flows go up there on the Shady Lane, but it has a big impact on our system.
Well, and all the bicyclists besides the car, there's a ton.
And then there's school.
Yeah.
Okay, then.
Okay. Looking for a motion?
I'm looking for a motion.
Is any board president here looking for? I move we authorize staff to issue a notice inviting bids and file a notice of exemption for construction of the large diameter gravity sewer improvement project, Roman numeral 2-3.
Second.
Okay, we didn't discuss at all the notice of exemption, but this is a replacement project.
So
It's
it's
a category piece of the district. Any further discussion by the board? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Okay. Let's move on to item 12, which is... I got it, but... Discussion and direction on proposed updates to the CMSA JPA. Agree?
Yep.
Want me to give a quick intro?
Would you do a
Doug?
quick, then I'll take it.
Because you've got this has been really, so, want to just say from general manager's perspective, collectively we talked about this. We all couldn't be happier with how this process is going, so we hope the ad hoc committee feels the same way.
Yep.
So what the board has in front of it is the latest results of the process of the ad hoc committee to review and update the CMSA joint So just for a quick remember, the process is the existing JPA topics have been broken out into 5 groups. And each of those 5 groups is moving through in sequence with first suggested edits from the general managers going to the ad hoc committee reviews and modifies those. That group of topics then comes back to each of the respective public boards, San Rafael, Ross Valley, Port Madera, San District 1, San District 2. They review and discuss and provide feedback. That comes back to the ad hoc committee who considers it and then makes any final edits or changes. The idea then being as we go through all 5 topic groups, at the end of this, you've got, we hope, strong consensus on a final set of updates to a new JPA agreement. That then comes back to all of the respective boards, because it has to, for consideration of approval. So what you've got in front of you is the outcome of the discussions on Group 3 and Group 4. I'm just going to hit the highlights. The details are in your package. You've got both red line and clean versions of each of those. Group 5, the core topic there was the discussion about the powers of the JPA, what services they can and cannot provide, what geographic limits there are to where they can and cannot provide those, and at a very pragmatic level, basically making it crystal clear per the JPA that the direct contracting with San Quentin and CMSA for the wastewater services is allowed for. So some of these updates just codify and make consistent the legal obligations we have under the settlement agreement, and others simply help resolve some concerns. They make it very clear, for example, that the JPA member agency must agree to, before there's contracted services for water and wastewater treatment within their service area, et cetera. So some of the lessons learned in the past have been incorporated. Otherwise, the other big thing is ownership of facilities. That's completely modernized and updated, and it reflects the MOU that we all already signed about a year or 2 back. And that will just become an exhibit to the new JPA agreement with a nice GIS map to back it up. And it answers the details of exactly geographically, physically, where each of our responsibilities for operations and maintenance and ownership starts and ends. Those are the highlights. The rest of it is a lot of important, but I would say editorial and historic update. So,
let me touch on that. That's right. I think the ownership was very important. It's very, very detailed, and there was in the past some argument about who owned what, and if there was a joint, did somebody own half the joint? So that's codified. A couple of things. Larkspur, I want to talk about at the beginning, where you talk about the voting. It codifies what we have right now, 6 members. And so this board authorized me to talk to the Larkspur City Council members, which I did. I will say privately, I was a little frustrated with my conversation with Dan Schwartz, who's the town manager of Larkspur, because Dan's a great guy. I was explaining to him that we have this catch-22, where the members of the JPA, and I think the members of their respective boards, don't want to, and I'll put it this way, hurt Larkspur's feelings. And so nobody wants to say something that will hurt their feelings. And so I was explaining to Kevin Haroff and Ann Morrison and Larry Chu, and I had in the past mentioned to the Larkspur rep on CMSA,
Dan Hilmer,
who's going to be the incoming mayor. Just that.
Yeah.
Not that I was suggesting an outcome, merely that I was asking for them to give us direction. And I got from them sort of an affirmative that that's a good idea.
What's a good idea?
That they give us some direction.
Oh.
Dan Schwartz was like, well, and I'd had this after I had a very great conversation with Kevin about this. He said, great, so I'm going to meet, Kevin said, I'm going to meet Dan tomorrow. Why don't you call Dan and reiterate your notes? And Dan's just like, why would I put this on the agenda? The CMSA Joint Powers Subcommittee is going to tell us. And I kept saying to him, but Dan, you're not listening to me. They're not doing that because we're at this catch-22. We need your direction. So I have a call in to Kevin Harf. They're going to have their meeting tomorrow, and I believe Kevin at the end will ask for an agenda item because Dan isn't going to put it on it unless there's a request from the council members, which there will be. Now, if there isn't, the next meeting, we don't have a meeting next month for the subcommittee. We're taking December off, we have one in January. I will simply then report to the crowd what each of those council members have said to me.
Okay. And maybe then the JPA committee can say, okay.
Right, we're gonna revise that part.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
And then the other thing that came up in the meeting is that, and this was very important to this board, was that there must be a unanimous, this is now codified, unanimous vote on the CMSA board for anyone to leave or to or
Because
to,
before it said that it had to be,
not majority, all must be by a vote of all the members.
it didn't
So
say
without
that though.
all
It
that,
didn't
it's
say
not-
that.
It does, if you get that,
I know there was two voting.
it's right there, it said, of the five, and that's how we said it, and that's how we meant it, the five.
Well, unanimous is 6.
Yeah, but Larkspur went.
Let me find out, do you know where that line is?
No, I can't, I was.
Because I just read
This is about leaving the.
Leading
JPA?
or disabling, or,
I
Okay, here it is.
can't really imagine that
Here it
happening.
is. Section 8.
I think you're correct.
Affirmative vote of 5 commissioners, but there are 6 of you.
yeah, there's not gonna be 6 of us. I got what you're saying. Anyway, so 5 out of 6 for right now, I understood. You're right. I think we're jumping ahead of
But
us.
you know, you didn't put in there that if somebody leaves, okay, well, I'm sorry.
Because it's gotta be unanimous, and who's gonna be, because they've gotta pay their own way, is what your concern was? Yeah. My point is, it's not gonna be dissolved, because you're never gonna get that outcome, but I understand, maybe I may wish to bring that back up again.
Well, to be clear, Tom, so the large, or whatever, the issue of just the, what we call the cleanup, so to speak, of having the Larkspur seat without any Larkspur, that's one issue.
That's one issue.
Then the separate issue, which is addressed later in the JPA and would be the new one as well, is an agency who's got facilities, et cetera, wants to leave the JPA. That's handled separately.
Good point.
That's its own.
That's
Okay,
what I
that's
thought.
what's up there. Okay,
Yeah.
that's my question.
Yeah, this is a very narrow, this is
Yeah.
strictly
Mhm.
the continuation or
Should-
not
should it
of the Larkspur.
Should it be 6?
No.
Well,
No.
I mean, first of all, we're not gonna break up, like, we all have too much money invested in piping sewage to CMSA, right? So this is kind of hypothetical. I can't really imagine that we could say, no, if you wanted to pick up and leave, can somebody bind their property interest forward in that way? I mean, it seems.
But see what's weird.
And then
too-
why would Larkspur have the ability to bind other people's property interests and they don't actually have the same
They don't
property?
own anything.
Right.
What if,
They're
what if,
part of our sanitary district
What?
now. They are part of our
Yeah, of
one.
course.
Yeah,
So why do they get an extra seat?
that's what we're trying to do.
Well, that's what we're talking about. This is the,
listen, in the future, we could use laser beams in a package plant to treat wastewater, and so that you could recycle it locally. Okay.
Okay.
Now, that's a very unlikely possibility, but it's a
We'll
possibility.
have jetpacks.
And I am aware of several agencies that have backed out of JPAs
Oh, okay.
and then wanted to be paid the replacement cost for their proportionate share of the facility.
Wow.
And it's gigantic, and you don't need the capacity. So you ought to cover it,
Okay.
and that you're going to, is what I'm.
Yeah,
Yeah, thank you. I
actually,
didn't know.
dissolution of or separation.
And in the
of-
future, people are probably gonna wanna recycle water more.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, great. That makes more sense to me now.
and we then talked about the settlements of disputes, and there's an internal resolution for managers, board members and managers, and then mediation. And so
We won't be
can't
suing each
sue.
other anymore.
We
Mediate.
can't sue ourselves.
No, we gotta mediate from now on, which is, we thought was the brilliant idea of the century,
Okay.
as opposed to,
I
and
have-
worse to, so it's,
Are you done?
no, I am denying it.
So I don't want to be a dead dog or drag skeletons out of the closet. But I'd like to know, because Greg, you mentioned something to me, and I didn't get really clear on it, that in hindsight, it sounds like the JPA should have been the people to vote for that, giving up the pipe. Is that what you said to me? I just want to be really clear, because I don't want to be confused and say something stupid.
I don't think so. say, but I'm not sure I understood
In
the question.
hindsight, the
Right.
JPA, the whole JPA should have made the decision about us giving the pipe to San Quentin. Is that what you said to me?
That was the reason that no, I don't think we gave the pipe, we
No, I'm
authorized.
just talking hindsight, if we're, you know.
No, I think what I was referring to, Pam, was, because I think I was mentioning, this was a recent conversation, correct? Like in the
Yes.
last couple of days, yeah.
Yes.
So I think what I was explaining was, or noting that the new language that we had brought in to fix some of the problems made evident by the San Quentin history were now such that it's crystal clear that CMSA cannot, you couldn't just, they couldn't go out today and say, well, I'm gonna go contract with party X and I'm gonna run that pipeline without the explicit permission of the agency of the local member, the JPA member. And surprisingly, actually, because you think with all the sensitivity, we would have been the first ones to bring this up at the table, but that's not actually what happened. Commissioner Bushy, Mary Beth Bushy brought this up and said, well, hold it, what if, I think the example she used was, what if San Rafael, it's a big, biotech center, and they need a bunch of wastewater, I don't want you, CMSA, going, well, we're just gonna go talk to biotech firm Giant X and put in our own wastewater system. We don't want you to have the authority to do that. She was right out of the gate on the whole powers thing, that JPAs needed to be, I don't mean to speak for her, what I understood her saying was, the member agencies need to be pretty clear that they're deciding what the JPA is and isn't doing. Anyway, I don't know
And
if I
Frank used to say the
confused
same thing. Frank said, why couldn't CMSA go to Marin General or go to College of Marin?
her. Those were
and
the
say-
examples we used, Mary.
They're
We
not
talked
allowed
about
to do that. They, CMSA.
Well, right, but this is
Yeah.
before. And I just love quoting Frank.
Yeah, so this basically was interesting because we were able to
Short
point
course.
out after Mary Beth's comments, we were able to say, well, those were some of the same concerns, obviously very contrived or hypothetical. So I think I may have just been saying that in the future, or if we had had these terms in the past, the decisions about these things would have been much more
More
clear.
clear, and that's what
Process
created so
would be
much
more-
angst. Okay, so my next question is separate. Did you all talk about members, who the members are on the commission? Because they have a mixed bag of appointeds,
Yeah, it's-
that
it's
do the
commission-
same, appointed for 100 years,
Yeah,
or
stayed the
electeds,
same.
or electeds?
It's right here, section
Did you
7.
have any
Attachment
discussion?
4, paragraph B.
It's like, so,
It stays the same. I think Pam is,
I'm super.
They can do what each board can choose its own representatives.
Don't you think it should be more uniform, though?
No, I don't think we have any right to tell the town of, the city of San Rafael what to do.
But for the whole board itself,
Okay, but
there's been discussion about, well, I don't want to go there, but
Should they be, elected or
Should it be the same
appointed?
term?
electeds versus appointeds, I don't know, there was a lot of discussion about
San
4
Rafael
years
has
ago.
3 elected officials, one is the mayor.
It just keeps the
You know,
same
and so
people there.
They need 2, and
Forever.
it's
Okay,
difficult.
they have 4 that are elected, and then the private separately elected mayor, so they have a 5 board.
No, it's the county sanitation district, San Rafael San, it's not the city.
That's right. Okay.
And they have a 3-person board, and 1 is a county supervisor, and 2, so.
Anyway, I just was-
Oh, that's why I was saying Katie Rice should be the rep at one point, it was in the LAFCO thing.
Yeah,
she is. They're saying Damien Conley should be.
she is,
Anyway, I was just curious, thank you.
Yeah, that's the reason they did it.
I had a question. This San Quentin Junction box, on page 2, it says something that, and I think, the way I read it, and I really don't understand, conflicts with what it says about the junction box on page 3. So are these two things like totally?
Right.
So on page 2, it says that SB2 and RVSD jointly own the San Quentin
JP exempt.
joint, whatever JD means, in this junction box structure, and do not have maintenance responsibility for the structure or electrical. And then it says, CMSA shall maintain the structure and operate, operate?
Yeah,
CMSA owns all electrical instrumentation, mechanicals, so it owns it, but it doesn't,
so
That's because of the
we,
lawsuit.
no, the two collection agencies technically own that capital. CMSA is responsible to operate and maintain it in its entirety. So it's a little bit of a hybrid. We
okay.
own it because it's part of the conveyance infrastructure, so to speak, but they are responsible for operation and maintenance.
Oh, I see, you know what, I was reading it as CMSA and
Right,
RVSD.
wasn't that because of the settlement of the lawsuit?
Um,
That they get to do the collections for San
Well, no, the pipeline from San Quentin Prison was clearly made to be owned by the state, and they could operate and maintain the pumps, the San Quentin pump station and so forth. This one was not really, it was just codifying what's always been done, as far as I know, since the beginning, since the regional system was first built. CMSA has always been responsible for that junction box, because they've got some chemical feed equipment that they use to put in the water coming to the plant. So that's just been the history. So this basically locked in the current practice.
Okay, you know what it really should say is, it says who doesn't do it, it should say who doesn't. And CMSA shall operate.
Right, that's what got me confused, I just assumed it was gonna say
And you know,
CMSA
the
and
next
RVSD,
one,
I didn't know SDG.
You've got who operates, but if you go to number 2, no, I'm on this page 1.
Yeah.
Okay, 1 and B, page 1, exhibit A to attachment 1. Okay, first of all, on 1, it should say CMSA has operation and maintenance responsibility, instead of just saying who doesn't.
Right, I
Say
think that
who
makes
does.
sense, yeah.
And on the next one, 2, it doesn't mention who does operation and maintenance. For the 54 Ross Valley, we need to say who does it. I think Ross Valley. For 2, Greg.
The 54.
Oh, here it does. Solely operates and maintains the infrastructure. Okay, I apologize.
Yeah, well, so
It was on the last line and everyone.
yeah, so we tried to state affirmatively ownership, and then in some cases, we felt it was useful to actually negatively state
Yeah.
operation
Yeah.
and maintenance, so it was clear.
But 1 should say who does operate it.
So the 54-inch RVSD interceptor has an issue I just want to flag that we'll need to work out separate from this directly with SD2. And the way that language reads is, and it's how the old.
Does SD2 operate?
I don't know, I don't
No,
know.
I think CMSA.
CMSA, on page
We'll
3.
figure out who operates.
I'm sorry. If you look on page 1 on the 54-inch RVS Ross Valley interceptor, we
FM 2A2.
We own and operate that. We jointly own it with San Rafael, or pardon me, with SD2.
That's 1.
But then the second sentence, Ross Valley solely operates and maintains the interceptor and its pipeline and fittings and appurtenances, blah, blah, blah. So what that means right now is that it means that even though the flow is, say, 90-10, it's, probably 95-5, Sand District 2 has virtually no financial obligation for the long-term operation, maintenance, and asset rehabilitation of this 54-inch force main, even though the entirety of their city flow has to go through it. That's how, in other words, if we went out and condition assessed the 54-inch, well, that actually was an example. Last year, we did a joint project to condition assess all the force mains. And we looked at this, and we looked at the agreements, and we said, there's nothing that says Sand District 2 has to pay for anything. So we didn't argue the point. There wasn't going to be that much money anyway. Ross Valley paid for the condition assessment, the smart ball technology and all that on this force main to the tune of, I don't know, $100,000. Maybe $100,000.
All we're saying is just put down, we're not arguing if who should do or what, just put down who does it. That's all.
Well, I think it's on
So-
paragraph
so
1 of your
my
question.
point
Because paragraph
is-
2, it says who's,
2 does, yeah.
our RSVD solely operates, and your question is 1. Who maintains 1?
Who maintains?
Paragraph 1.
That's all I want to say, and it
It's
does
on-
say it.
1A.
It's on page 3.
But on
D5.
page 3, it does say it, so maybe you should say it there.
Yeah.
It's the CMSA.
CMSA does it. So
Say
this
it
is
there.
the way,
Yeah.
we tried different ways, like, do you go, here's the facility and then here's the agency?
Right.
Or do you go, here's the
Right.
agency?
I don't think
here's
we're
the
just
facilities?
reading through it.
Yeah.
We just want to put
Yeah.
down who operates it.
Okay, so my takeaway, what I meant from a minute ago was, separate from this, Ross Valley and the city of Puerto Madero are gonna have to sit down someday and recognize that the entirety of Puerto Madero's flow goes through this force main that they pay virtually nothing for. And if we had to go recode it tomorrow for $500,000, we would have no basis for asking them to participate in the cost of that, even though they have joint ownership of that facility and all of their flow goes through it. So that's an issue for us in the city.
Why don't we put that in here?
Because it's not a matter for, we could, Tom, but I'm afraid it would bog down the
The board system,
negotiations.
okay.
And I'd rather us solve it directly with Todd Cucinato and company in the
All right.
future. So that's why it's not in
So
there.
we'll work on that later.
Yeah, and us resolving
That's a
it
good idea.
doesn't affect what's in here.
Okay, now on
Well,
page
so we're
4.
reading it, we read one paragraph and then we just think, who does take responsibility for this? But from a legal perspective, as long as it's somewhere in the
You read
document.
the whole thing, it's covered, it's covered.
Yeah,
We don't mention the San Quentin pump station.
Because it is not any longer owned by any of the member agencies, it's owned entirely by the state of California, and the operation and maintenance responsibilities are CMSA under contract.
From the San Quentin, if we could say, from the San Quentin pump station, parens owned by the Department of Corrections, or something like that.
What happens if the contract
Says it.
is dropped? What happens, Greg? Let's say they no
Contract.
longer want to have a contract with
Then
them.
That's
Then what
right.
happens? Who's
The
responsible?
state of California,
Uh-huh.
they'd have to work.
You just
something
find
out.
somebody else.
Yeah,
but nobody else can do it.
it's,
No, it doesn't say.
you know, any number of parties could operate and maintain a pump station.
That's what I thought,
unfortunately.
okay.
It's, you can go through that easily. I mean, we think this reflects things pretty clearly. It codifies what's in the settlement agreement to some degree. The pump station, the San Quentin pump station, the best I can tell you is that this agreement is silent on it because it's not the responsibility of any of the parties
Yep.
any longer.
See, the key thing, in my opinion, about this is that we couldn't have done this, 2 years ago? There was no way we could have had this working group.
Yeah.
Producing it.
So that's another sign of how
Going in the right
things are
direction.
straight out.
You just said that this doesn't, that, you said something which made me think that San Quentin is contracting directly with CMSA as if this isn't, the Joint Powers Authority is CMSA.
Right.
So, I don't know, it makes me think, because Jason shouldn't be able to go contract with anybody.
Right.
It should be, should the contract or the details of San Quentin contract be in this?
Well, hang on, let me address that a little bit. I think it was at the last meeting, we all agreed, and it's in a document somewhere, that CMSA can't offer its services, certainly within our own
Right.
districts at all, and can't without our district, without our approval. In other words, if Las Colinas said they wanted CMSA to do something, and we all thought, well, we can make some money having them do that, we can approve that. They may not do it in our own district at all, under any circumstances, except that this was codified in a legal document, and so that's the exception for San Quentin. And that's the reason for San Quentin.
Existing
It's separate.
relationship.
And it just says currently the agency is authorized.
Yeah, I just,
But
I'm a little
the
uncomfortable.
formation document doesn't necessarily need to go into
Have the details of one
This is just,
contract.
yeah,
If
how
I-
it's formed.
If I can also
Okay.
say, the JPA subcommittee has also spoken clearly about the fact that we're looking down the road at much more shared services with the plan that at some point our boards would consider a simple merger of all of them. That's not ready right now, but I think San Rafael thought it was appropriate. I think we might think it's appropriate. I'm not sure Cormadero was there yet, But that was only because my understanding is there's a board member on Corte Madera that wouldn't feel that they would, but shared services is fine. But, you know, we're trying to create a document where down the road, should we merge, it becomes easier to create that and facilitate that merger.
Right.
But again, right now, we're just talking about more and more shared services.
Okay.
That's good.
And I thought, you know, those meetings are going well.
So, this is a discussion item.
And we discuss.
We've given input.
Yep.
And when you get through all 5 sessions, it's gonna go to each member. And each of us have to approve it.
Yes,
Yeah, everybody has to approve it, it's a contract.
and but that's why we're getting these in chunks, so we can do, you know,
Oh, yes.
so it's not a surprise to anybody. It's
So
just-
it seems to me to be progressing. quite
Yeah,
nicely.
it really has eliminated the ambiguity about the authorities and powers in the future, and I think
Okay.
it's hopefully.
Any further discussion?
We'll bring this, we'll report back to the ad hoc committee, the directions from our board. And at the January meeting of the Ross Valley Board, we should bring you group 5, which is the final group, topic group number 5. And hopefully if progress continues, we would expect to have a complete new JPA agreement maybe available in March for the parties to consider.
Okay.
So things have gone well.
Okay, we're done with that one. Item 13, verbal report by board members and staff and requests for future items.
Okay.
Any board member comments?
Yes. First of all, there was no laughter meeting. Before I pass this down. And I think there's one extra.
Why
So,
don't you want us to turn these?
Yeah, I have this right here too. What about this?
Can you,
No, that's okay.
Please, thank you. Sorry about that, that was an oversight.
This?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, further down the line, Patrick will be worried about.
That's a very good practice.
oh, we have to give this back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you, Kim.
That's right, it says confidential. Okay, so I went to the North Bay watershed, and it was a very impressive meeting. Michael was there. Well-informed, amazing education. A lot of it's sad because of the fire. I mean, it's all about recovery right now and response. So there were some scientists who came to speak about, again, the toxic ash. It's too bad it wasn't videotaped, so that's going to be my request there. But overall, you can see the summary in the first or second paragraph. It's going to be at the point right now, it's $3.3 billion for costs and damages. And the erosion rate will be 10 to 22%. So we still don't know how much of it's going to affect everything in the area. And they're trying to haul that stuff out as fast as they can, because the longer you leave it, the more the sediment gets into the dirt and the runoff, et cetera, et cetera. What else? David Connolly made this amazing statement. He said, this is the new normal, that these fires are going to be happening more and more. And I guess it has to do with climate change, depending on how you think about it. But what else happened there? Oh, they talked about the toxic removal, where it's going to go. Napa, because they had gone through the earthquake, they were sort of the lead county, I felt, on how to handle chaos. And so now they're looking at what could they do differently and how can they learn from all of the disaster. And then I put in some points about they're using some booms and wattles, something called wattles, to help stop all the runoff and look at the culverts that melted. So they're just, it's just like, there's so many agencies. That's the one thing that I noticed that I couldn't keep up with. There's so many agencies helping out. I'm hoping they're going to figure out how to kind of condense that more as time goes on. Let's see. They're using a drone to go up and do some aerial views so they can look at hill slopes and channels. And that's sort of it. Oh, the other fear is the drinking water, obviously, and they have about 125 chemicals that are regulated, but it's all these other chemicals. They absolutely don't know how to even identify some of them. And these are scientists that came in from the San Francisco Bay Estuary. So that is the biggest concern, but right now the drinking water is okay. So, and then the next meeting's January 5th. And we have a conference coming up on April 6th. And that's sort of it in a nutshell.
Thank you. Anybody else?
No.
Okay.
Has everybody decided on whether they're going to the January conference?
I'm going.
Pass. Yeah.
Is everybody told? Is there four of us have- Are you going or not going? Just want to make sure you're not.
Who's going?
Four of us, not married.
I'll be there.
You're gonna go? You driving or flying?
Fine.
Drive.
Last year I drove, this year I'm fine. Last year I drove.
Oh, okay. I haven't been with other in a long time.
Don't talk
I
about
wonder if we have a policy of not accepting dinner invitations from consulting engineers.
It's an individual decision.
Pardon me?
It's an individual decision because the gift responsibilities are on each of you
Under
individually. and not the
700s,
board.
yeah. Okay.
Or you could go and pay for your own dinner, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a bad policy at all to always just pay your own way. Ask what the cost was and
That's
pay.
what I
Which is what I've done.
Okay.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn?
Wait, I'll have
I move
some
to adjourn.
items for the next agenda.
Item for the next agenda.
Yeah. So, I'm hoping for January, February, and Greg is, actually, no, we've had a little discussion about us looking at going from light green to deep green. And if we could put that on the agenda to talk about, most of the public agencies are all on board with that. We're just, I don't know, we need to look at the numbers.
Marin Clean Energy, go into the deep green customer billing rate. Where it's, the intent is it's 100% renewable energy. We're already on like partial,
Yeah.
I forget what that means exactly, but yeah, there's a big push for 100% deep green. So that's the ask we have from MCE, is as an MCE customer, would we like to shift to the deep green?
And that costs more or less?
Costs a bit more
Costs
to get 100% renewable. Yeah.
Or if we put it on the agenda, we'll know it costs more, won't we?
Right, and then could we do an energy audit?
We could, we tried, we went a long way down the road with the county energy efficiency team about 2 years ago, and to be quite honest about it, we spent a lot of time and energy, and we're not able to get much value out of them whatsoever.
What about even like LED?
We had to look at pump stations, where the big power is the VFDs and the pump stations.
Yeah.
So I don't mean to be dismissive, but the county energy team didn't turn out to be.
So could we just go out on it for an independent?
We could, we have looked at ways to improve the energy efficiency of our pump stations, and all the retrofits that are being done at pump station 12 and 13 are maximum energy efficiency. So that is an area of the pump stations we already do really the main thing.
Yeah.
The shift to deep green adds 1 or 2% to our electric bill for the year. It's a couple percentage points, and it allows them to show a greater customer base dedicated to 100% deep green, and they have certain it has some certain benefits to MCE, I assume. Yeah. But we'll bring it to you in January. I don't see it to be quite
Okay, no,
honest,
I
it's a
mean-
big deal.
Yeah.
It's a symbolic kind of thing. It's not a huge dollar item for the district. And also, just so you don't forget for perspective, I mean, we pay for, we are the half of the bioenergy,
Behemoth.
and
That is CMSA.
so yeah, look at it collectively as joint powers authority level. We're actually doing a lot. So we'll probably bring it to you as a decision item. It's quite straightforward. We'd ask your authorization to explore a contract modification with MCE, come back with some analysis, and it's again a couple percentage point differences in our energy bill for the year.
Okay.
Will we be getting an update on the large landing property, just because two people
Yes,
have asked?
thank you. Long awaited, hard to get meeting next week in San Francisco with EPA.
Okay, so it'll be on the agenda if there's any news to
In
report.
January, the board should expect a verbal, at least, update and discussion on where we are with EPA.
Okay, and you got my,
All right,
can
we have
the
adjourned.
can the new law be addressed to?
Yeah.
I
It's
move
not
to
new,
adjourn.
it's bygone.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay, meeting adjourned.